Let's go ahead and change the font for the other words. Now, typically you only want to, something like this that's very small in text, you only want to use 2 fonts. You could get away with 3. One might not look that great. It usually looks a little better if you break it up and use 2 different fonts. However, if you start using 3, 4, different types of fonts, it's going to be way too much and you don't need that. So let's go ahead and change the brew house. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click on my type tool, and then we can change this to a font that we want. Arial is not too bad. One popular one that I also like is called Railway. So I'll go ahead and click on that, and it just gives, it's nice, sharp, easy to read, and it gives these little cool things like with the W. That looks really neat. Let's go ahead and change it for the bottom text also. And you can type in fonts, so I know it's called Railway, so I can just type that in, and then I have all these different options. So I could do Railway Medium, and as I go highlight, as I scroll over these, you'll see it change. So it shows a preview as I move back and forth. So maybe bold might be good, or maybe I want it a little lighter. Maybe I don't want it to stand out so much. We'll just start with regular. That doesn't look too bad. And so now this font and this font match. You can see the W's are the same. It looks nice. It's easy to read. The letters are a little close together. So you can see under breakfast item, like these letters get a little kind of close. And if you zoom out, it might be a little hard to read. So let's go ahead and highlight those and let's space these out, the letter spacing. So we want to go up to the top, and this right here where it says a V and A and the arrow go back and forth, that's your letter spacing. So if we stretch this, you can see what it does. That just makes it a lot easier to see. Now we have to make a decision here. Do we want to use a smaller font size, or do we want to drop this down also? So let's start off with a smaller font size. So we got to get real small to get that in here, which doesn't look bad, but it's very hard to read. So let's go ahead and try and drop it down and see how that looks. We just got to find a good midway point, maybe between purchase and of. And of course the line spacing is way too much, so we're going to highlight all that and let's bring that in. Okay, that looks good. So let's go ahead and change the size now because we can move it on up. So we'll do, I think 16 is good. We will adjust the line spacing to give it a little breathing room also. And then let's click on it and just make sure it's nice and centered up. We can go a little lower with this. Yeah, that looks really good. So having that letter spacing in between just breaks it up a little bit and makes it a little easier on the eyes to read. So let me zoom out. And it might be a little hard to see. We could maybe make it bigger, or we could try maybe a little bolder font if it's too hard. So let's try to change this to semi-bold. So that darkens it up a little bit for us. And that becomes a little easier to see at a smaller size. And it's really just coming in and messing around and manipulating these things and just really trying to see what works best. So I'm going to set it to bold, and so it's nice and bold for us and a little easier to see at a distance. So that looks good. Let's go ahead and change the brew house. The brew house looks pretty good where it's at, but maybe we want to give it just a little bit of line spacing so it's not so much, and then it's probably not in the right place, so we just want to maybe get it centered and just find out height wise, how does that look? Does that look pretty good? Is it too much? Is it not enough? So let's see. Let's turn down the size just a hair. Can't always find my center, so I'm trying to find the center of the document here. And you can use the arrow keys to move it around a little bit. And how does that look if we bold it? Maybe a little too much. Yeah, we'll just leave it on medium. That looks pretty good. I think I want to make it just a touch bigger. We were at 36, we went to 30. Let's go to 32. I just want to make sure it's a little bit bigger than the text at the bottom. So that looks pretty good. Now the only other thing here at this point is just kind of play around with colors. We got our text in here. The text looks nice. It's easy to read. Even the have a cup on us, if we wanted to, we could just bump the size out just a hair. No, I don't like that. That doesn't look good. It doesn't create that nice handwriting effect. We'll leave that alone. But let's go ahead and mess around with some of the colors and see how that looks. So we'll pick the type tool and make sure have a cup on us is selected. Over in the properties panel, we have a color, or in our character dialog, we have a color also. If we click on that, it brings up our color picker here. And then we can pick in our swatches one of the colors. So if we pick, oh, that looks really nice. Or we could go lighter. So that's kind of cool. So we could have white text for the top and the bottom, and then have this text, or maybe we could flip-flop those and see how that looks. Let's try, I'm going to pick this light cream color so it's not perfectly white. And then I'm going to go to the brew house. Oh, I got hit OK. Go to the brew house, change its color, and now let's pick that very saturated look. And then free coffee, and pick that saturated look. So that looks cool also. That really draws you into the have a cup on us, and then they'll see the brew house and the information below. The color isn't for the brew house and the free coffee, probably isn't as bright as I want it to be. It's a little dark, so it's blending in. So this is that point where you just make that decision, you know, what if we just lighten this color up a little bit? So let's click on the brew house. We're going to click on color, and now you can see where we are for brightness and for saturation and for the hue. Let's go to the brightness, and let's just go ahead and bump that all the way up, and you can see it pops a lot more. And let's go to the saturation. Oops. Too much. Okay, go to saturation, and we probably don't want it that saturated. I think that looks pretty good right there. So let's go ahead and click add to swatches. It's going to add this in there. So we'll just call this new cream color or something. Okay. We'll save that. Now go down to the free coffee with breakfast item, click on the color, and then pick on that new saturated cream color. And that looks really good. Now it's going to be just a matter of kind of spacing and sizing and making sure that everything is lined up. You can see that the middle line of have a cup on us is above the coffee itself. So let's make sure that the have a cup on us is centered to the best of our knowledge. And it is. That's pretty good. I'm looking left and right to make sure that the brew house is kind of centered with have a cup on us. Free coffee, and at this point I'm just kind of using my arrow keys to nudge things around. So the free coffee, you can make a decision if you want it at the bottom and give it some space at the top, or do we want it kind of closer? So I'd just do a midway point. Now, if you hit up and down or left and right with the arrow keys, it'll do 1 pixel at a time. If you hold shift, I think it does like 5 or 10 pixels at a time, and that just gives us bigger jumps. So I'll kind of find a good place and just kind of move that around. Let's move the brew house up a little bit. And then this is one of those parts where I'd probably zoom out a little bit so that I can see the overall picture and how does the spacing look. So let's take that brew house, and I think that's pretty good. And then free cup on us. Maybe we can move up a little bit. I'm not sure if that's, let's go back to the 30 point. I think it's a little too big. And let's move it up just a hair. And then now let's move the coffee mug up just a little bit so it's more in line with the text. So I'm going to go to that original image Facebook group that we created. Make sure that we have the move tool selected, and you can use the arrow keys here also. Now we're bleeding off the bottom, so we were all the way down, so we'll just have to leave it there. We could resize this if we wanted to. So maybe we make it bigger. If you hold down Alt or Option while you resize, it'll do from the center. So if you don't hold it, it does it from a corner. But if you hold Alt or Option, it'll do it from the center. So what we can do is make it a little bigger, and then it gives us the ability to just move it up a little bit. And I don't want it perfectly in the center. I always like it just a hair lower, hair higher. And that looks really good. So that is completed. Now all we need to do is we can take those other design elements and move them into our other artboards. So let's go ahead and turn those back on, and we will begin manipulating those.